Good morning and welcome to Science again. This week, having studied the skeleton in some detail, today you've got the chance to represent a joint in the body through some creative medium or other. Now you've got a good wide range of different ways that you could present this. If you're limited in resources, that's okay. I've included some A3 paper in your work pack. So you could use any colours or if you felt quite creative, you could do collage with different materials, stick those on to make your own picture of a joint inside the body. For example, the elbow, the knee, they're all structured in a similar kind of way. If you wanted to, you could even say ice a cake, whatever you feel able to do. Now, I hope that you've got the time, the resources, and the creativity to have a go at making your own Play-Doh, and from that to make your own model of a joint. Maybe you can do much better than my own version here, which of course I will explain in greater detail as to what these different bits are. So let's begin with looking back at the handout. And you will see here, and you've seen in the worksheets that you've done so far this week and the reading that you've done, that the bones, if they just got stuck together, they'd rub together, all that friction will cause pain, because remember, bones have nerves inside them to pick up pain. That's the reason that if you've ever broken a bone, it hurts a lot. So the bone is surrounded by some fluid and is held together by ligaments on the outside. So I wonder, can you come up with an even better, won't be difficult, an even better way of representing a joint using Play-Doh? But first of all, of course, you need a recipe for Play-Doh. And they are very simple household ingredients, no cooking required, just rough measuring and mixing. So let's make a start. Here is 150 grams of flour, plain flour. If all you've got, for example, is wholemeal or self-raising or strong, these are all different types of flour. You can use those, that's okay. So 1 part of flour, also 150 grams of salt. Just normal table salt that's got this kind of thin feel to it. As long as it's sodium chloride, that will give the consistency to the Play-Doh that we'll be looking for. So just give those a rough stir together, as you can see that I've done here, in a mixing bowl. As long as it holds it enough, that's all that you need. What you will need to prepare for making your model look more detailed is a couple of other smaller dishes that you'll divide your dough into 3 different bits in a short while. So you've got your 150 grams of flour, plain flour will do. You've got your 150 grams of table salt, because you want that fine texture to it. And you're going to add, I'm going to start with 200 millilitres of water, which I've measured out in a measuring jug. Now, for those of you who do any food lessons with me in the future, this is the only time you'll ever hear me say that these are rough amounts only, because baking is a science, but making Play-Doh less so. So I've started off by mixing these together, and as you can see, my consistency with 200 mils of water is fairly loose. Just checking that the camera can see that. So this is looking a bit like kind of pancake mixture at the moment. That needs a bit more flour added to it. Now, it's at this stage that if it was far too tough and still in bits, that you'd add a little bit of water. Because my mixture is too thin, I'm going to add some more flour. Again, just using plain flour, I'm going to use the spoon to begin to fold that in. So what that means, let's see if the camera, what that means is that I'm just lifting it through so that the flour gets incorporated, mixed into that mixture. And can you see, it's now starting to come together. That's more what I'm after. It's getting stickier. So no runny mixtures, it needs to be sticky, just mixing that next bit in. If you've ever made something like bread, then, or pizza bases, that might be the kind of consistency to be aiming for. Now, I've added some more flour, and I'm just blending this in a little bit more. And by the way, I'm hoping to make some more Play-Doh for another lesson in the centre in a few weeks. So looking ahead, I need to get this recipe better, ready for a different lesson, which I'm hoping to offer in due course. Now, so I've got a figure in mind for the proportions. Back to this batch. Can you see that that's terrible English. It's held itself together quite nicely, and I'm going to now start to work at it with my hands. So I can pull that last bit of dough off the spoon, put my spoon down somewhere. I will clear up nicely afterwards. And I'm filming this on the same day that we did this activity in the centre, and I can speak for me, I had lots of fun. And I think my students who were doing it in the session in the centre had lots of fun as well, and the staff as well. Bit more flour to make sure that it holds together. What I need it to become is a consistency that I can just pick it up and start to knead it by hand. And it's so nearly there. There we go. By the way, flour, the amount of liquid that it takes, it varies by batch. So different seasons, the same plant can produce different qualities of flour. There's different supermarkets, different brands. So with this, it really is a bit of a see how this works in due course. Now, can you hear? Yeah? So what I'm now able to do is just simply move the dough between my hands like this, and the only way that I can describe it is it has a good silky feel to it. Now, whilst this is non-toxic, it's got no chemicals in, like if you bought Play-Doh from a high street retailer, I wouldn't recommend eating it because of its high salt content. So it's not toxic, but nor is it something to nibble on. So please keep this out of reach of any younger members of your household who might want to try and eat it. Don't want that to happen. Once you have one decent mass of dough, you know what? Mine is even still a tiny bit too thin, because can you see it sticking to my hand? I'll just work with that because I've got no flour to hand. I'll get the last bits out of the bowl, and then I want to divide it into... Just drop the bowl. Oops. I want to divide it into 3 different sections of dough. So remember I said get 2 more dishes. I've got mine here ready. And just roughly into thirds. So that's 1 bit there, that's 1 bit there, and 1 bit there. Ideally, I would nip off and wash my hands at this point, but because the sink for washing hands here in the kitchen is in the hallway, I don't want to interrupt the flow of this, this lesson. However, my hands are... No, I'll go with it. So, what you also need, ideally, is some food colouring. If you were really stuck, you could just make it with 3 different bits of dough and see how that works. But just for effect, I'm going to colour 1 batch of food colouring blue. Just a few drops is all that I need. I'm going to colour 1 batch of food colouring. I've got some red here. There we go. They needed using up anyway, so I found some a cake topping box here somewhere, so that's what these have come from. And I've got some green. So I've got 3 quite different colours of dough now, and all I'm going to do is just knead them in their little dishes here. And you won't get a strong colour here, but you will get distinctive colours. So can you see, just in my hands, I'm going to knead them. There we go. And all that I need is 3 fairly distinct colours, if I can, because I'm going to show the difference between the bone, the ligaments, the fluids. Just as detailed a diagram as I can do with Play-Doh. And again, if you don't have the resources, that's fine. You can spend the time researching or using what's already there in your PowerPoint that I've printed off and make that kind of detailed picture, so long as you're copying as much detail as possible. Now, what would have been good if I wasn't needing to be here doing a seamless video is nip out and wash my hands, because my red, can you see, the red's gone a bit purpley. Oh well. I work with what is. And lastly, oh, that's a beautiful shade of green, don't you think? It's like it's come out of a swamp. So again, just kneading, can you see what I'm doing there? I'm kneading that food colouring through. And so I have 3 different colours of Play-Doh, homemade Play-Doh, and that all took not even 10 minutes. Lastly, I need some kind of a surface. So in this case, I've got a plastic chopping board, and I am going to very quickly wash my hands. So I'm going to pause this. No, I'm not, because I need to make a new film. I'll be right back. I need to make firstly a bone. So I'm going to use the purple colour, which has got some green in it. I like how this has made some quite fascinating colours here. So the bone is in the middle of my diagram, remembering that I'm looking to copy this joint as much as possible. By the way, here is an excellent model of a bone. That's your waggle, what a good example looks like. So I have a bone. I'm going to show the fluid that surrounds the end of the bone in a joint. So I think I'm going to put the green dough there. It doesn't matter what colours you have and which one does what, just so long as you get a sense of the different bits of a joint. That's what's most important. There we go. And lastly, I need to make sure that I've got my ligaments, because it's the ligament that surrounds the joint, and make sure that it doesn't all fall apart. So that's the muscly tissue that holds the joint together. So lastly, I've got this fetching blue colour. See? Nice kind of sky blue. It's got some green in it. And that's the limitation of a live demonstration. If I'd have done this again, I might have had a bucket of water to hand to wash my hands in. And so the ligament goes all the way around the outside. So that is my fairly quick rendition of a bone joint. So do you see here, this is the actual bone itself. That's the kind of pinky reddy colour. And then this is the fluid inside the joint. And this here is the ligaments that hold it all together. So very simply, that's my offer for you today. To creatively as possible, by whatever means you want to and have available, make your own bone joint. And I look forward to seeing what you've done. So take a photo if you can. Keep it as a picture and see how creative you can be today. Have a brilliant day doing this. I've had fun today at school, and hopefully look forward to seeing you soon or by doing the next lesson. Have a lovely day.